did get a hold of Mrs. Arnold last night, so sounds like she's doing okay. She's still struggling with health stuff, and then her sisters, I guess, are not doing well. So that was why I couldn't get a hold of her last week. She was chatting with them and figuring stuff out with them.
Jared wanted to be here today, but she's not feeling well.
Okay.
So Jan is having trouble with the hip that he had surgery on, and the things that they tried so far haven't helped him. He's still trying to find a solution for that. And then his son is Justin is having he's an alcoholic, and I think he's trying to work things out, but so it would be good for him to.
Anything else? All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this body of believers. Thank you that we get to be a part of it. Lord, we just want to lift several of our members and friends and members up to you in prayer. Lord, we lift up Shirley Lee. Pray for her health and the recent loss of her husband. Just pray that the Jacksons can be an encouragement to her. Pray for Mrs. Arnold and her health, and for her sisters. Pray that we can continue to support her, and that we can do what we can for her and her family. Pray for Sister Jarrett as well. She's not feeling well. I miss her, and pray that she's feeling well enough to come be with us soon. I pray for Jan and his hip, and just prayers that would recover, and that you would heal him, and that he wouldn't have to go in for other surgeries or procedures for that. And also prayers for his son Justin, just that he can continue to support him and his young family as he works through all these things. We pray for all this in your son's name, Jesus. Amen. So keeping the theme with our kind of thinking about the biblical story and thinking about themes in the biblical story, I wanted to open up with a discussion about black sheep in families. So black sheep is somebody who's an outcast or rebellious or maybe just different from everybody else in the family. And it holds a lot of prominence in our cultural narratives, and oftentimes in our own stories and our family stories. And so my question is, why do you think these stories resonate so much with us? Is it because we all feel excluded sometimes? We all feel like a black sheep at times, where we're outsiders and have this alienation? Is it because we love seeing somebody who has fallen away or has kind of been pushed away, but they're redeemed and brought back into the fold and reintegrated into the family? Or is it because whenever we hear about a black sheep, it's like there's these we see these dynamics and tensions in families, and it confronts how we think about favoritism and jealousy, and how it perpetuates these cycles. So is it we can relate to them? Is it because we like seeing this redemption, or because it draws out these cycles of conflict within families? And that's just a helpful type of story to think about. Or is it something else?
Well, it's a pitiful irony. The black sheep in a family is ostracized, and yet we know Jesus loves the one. He's got the 99 safe, and he loves the one, and he's eager for the one to return. And frequently the black sheep does not return, and that's a
spite of all of that, and I think that's what's appealing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think about my own family, and my biological grandfather, I'd never met him. He left my grandmother before my dad was 10, I think, and so it was like, and then my grandmother remarried, and so I have all these like aunts that I've never met. He had like 7 daughters, and I've met a couple of them, but not very many. And I have probably dozens of cousins I've never met or gotten to know. And then my dad passed away almost 15 years ago now, and just all this like messiness. But one of the things that's very helpful is to remember is like I meet somebody who maybe doesn't have quite as many holes in their family tree or whatever it is, but they have just as many problems and just as many like tensions and weird stuff going on in their family, and so you don't have to dig that deep to run into all that kind of stuff. And then you also see other people with families that are much worse off and much more fractured and argumentative or not peaceful. So that too. Any other thoughts on why this idea of the black sheep is so appealing to us, or not the idea of the black sheep is appealing, but rather stories like this grab our attention?
I think there's a lot of wisdom on both sides. So I could think of the black sheep as a positive or a negative. Like I had 3 older siblings, and I felt like I learned a lot of things that I didn't want to repeat in my life, just by watching them and kind of learning from what they've done. But I think it's definitely going against the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone does something different, is stand out.
Yeah.
And so I think it always kind of just is alarming because it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, so you think of a character like Jacob, who has 12 sons, and what was Joseph's life like watching his 10 brothers all go off and do their thing? Yeah, let's get into the story, though. I want to recap real quick our lesson from last week. So we were talking about Abram and his covenant, but also his own exile down into Egypt. And so we saw that he went down to Egypt kind of his own choice or own free will, even though there was a famine. That was kind of the circumstance. And then he ends up being brought back to the promised land after plagues and things come on Egypt. And then he gets this covenant. God offers him this covenant. Thinking now about Isaac and Jacob, these kind of 2 descendants, what are some ways that they parallel Abraham's story that you can think of? Isaac doesn't have a whole lot of narratives that are about him. He's really kind of a backdrop for the eventual arrival of Jacob, and he's also kind of a side character in Abraham's story. But thinking about him or Jacob, how can we continue to see this theme of exile play out in Genesis here?
Well, there was the repeat of the deception of Abimelech, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think was a kingly name. It wasn't the same Abimelech that necessarily that Abraham received.
Yeah, it means son of the king, so pretty unimaginative name for a king to name their son. But
Nevertheless, he lied about his wife.
or no, the king is my father.
Didn't he lie about Rebecca?
Yeah, so Abraham does that to Abimelech, and then Isaac does the same thing. And so Abraham lies about his wife to Pharaoh, and then he comes back, and it seems like he might have learned something from doing that he maybe shouldn't do that, but it seems like he didn't learn that. Maybe he learned that worked out pretty well for him, so he does it again to the king of the Philistines, Abimelech. And then Isaac does the same thing.
The other parallel is Rebecca was barren
yeah, so Rebecca has this barrenness, which is similar to Sarai's, although it doesn't seem to play as much of a central role. Isaac prays for her, and then her womb's open, which is great.
It amuses me that in both these cases, a supposedly man of God, a godly man, a righteous man, had such a low opinion of the people and the rulers around that he had to lie to them, and then comes back around that both of them have equal, if not higher, morals than he does in seeing the truth and seeing the right thing for, the social norm. I think that's amusing that both Abraham and Isaac have such a low opinion that they have to lie to these people.
Yeah, and it's super important to understand that the story is ambiguous about whether that was a legitimate concern, whether that was a common practice to steal someone's wife and kill the husband and do that kind of thing. We know that kind of stuff does happen in history. But also, once Yahweh confronts these leaders, they quickly do the right thing and give her back. So, yeah. The other thing with Jacob, hopefully if we remember the story of Jacob and Esau, Jacob is exiled into Babylon, or Mesopotamia at least. So he's exiled. He's sent to northern Mesopotamia, which is different from Babylon. Babylon would be southern, near the coast of the two rivers. But Jacob spends 20 years in exile, away from his home. He is gathering wives, gathering children during that time, but he is unable to return home. First, he owes this great debt to his uncle Laban for purchasing the wrong woman in marriage, and then getting some fine print on the Amazon return policy that turns out you actually need to do 7 more years. Yeah, but Laban's just as tricky as Jacob is, and so they kind of end up stuck with each other for this long amount of time. And ultimately, Laban is the loser because Jacob, by creating more black sheep, he steals all of Laban's flocks and then brings them home with him. So I don't know if the term black sheep was an idiom that they used as well, but it seems like it has some sort of pattern in this story at least. So today though I want to look at Joseph and Judah, right? So Jacob returns home. Interestingly enough, Jacob and Esau meet again, right? This is after a night of restlessness for Jacob. He realizes that Esau's coming. He's bringing 300 men with him. He's very concerned about this, and so he stays up all night. And he ends up wrestling with this man who just shows up, and then the man wants to stop wrestling, and Jacob says, "No, not until you give me your blessing." And so he gives him his blessing. He renames him Israel, which means wrestles with God, and then and he's also touches him on the hip, which gives him a limp for the rest of his life. But then he meets his brother Esau. It's very interesting because where does Esau end up? You guys remember? If you pull open your maps in the back of your Bible, where's the land that Esau ends up settling in? Edom. Yeah. So you find that in your map in the back of your Bible. If you got maps in the back of your Bible. So Edom is just to the kind of southeast of the Dead Sea down here, which is interesting because Esau was the firstborn of Isaac, and he is exiled from the land. Esau is sent away. He marries all these Canaanite women, and he ends up building this dynasty down away from Canaan, out in the wilderness. Edom is a much harsher place than Canaan is. It's even less less rainfall than this place that doesn't get a whole lot of rainfall. So, just interesting to see. And then we have these, the prophets kind of reflect on this idea, and even it's brought up in the New Testament again, where it says, well, God has this choice. He says, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. And you get this idea of Esau was sent into exile, but I loved Jacob, and I have this choice about whom I'm going to bestow my blessing on. And so my question to you is that fair? Is that right? Is that good?
It's God's purposes for election. He needs a unique family, a unique people to bring forth the Messiah. The Edomites, out of their own free will, I would say, chose to inhibit or restrict the growth of Israel. They could have supported them. They could have said, been of support to God's favored nation, and would have been blessed for it. But they fought and were punished for it.
Yeah, when did God make this decision about choosing Jacob over Esau? What's that?
Birth.
Was it at birth?
Before
It was before birth, right? So Rebecca gets this message that you have two nations in your womb who will war with each other, and the older will serve the younger. Right? And so it's doesn't have anything to do with their choices. Right? It's God foreknowledge of who they are and what they're like, and he knows that he needs Jacob to carry on his blessing. So even though he's the younger. And that's a tough, I just want to make sure you understand, that's a tough situation if you're Esau, right? You're the oldest, you're the strongest, you're the hunter. Maybe there's whisperings from your mother, from Jacob, that you're going to serve your younger brother. So maybe there's some compensation that's going on for all of that kind of stuff. But that's your lot. And if you're a nation and you're planted next to God's chosen nation, is it? I don't know. What's that feel like to be? It's like, well, you don't get to be the nation, but you can serve the nation, support them in all that they're doing. Just
Interesting thought, because it can't be that Esau has a choice in the matter. It seems, and that goes all with the whole even God's providence, but it seems like God knew beforehand what Esau was going to be like.
mhm.
I don't know, that's a hard one.
And I think it relates to our lives as well, because we all end up in these situations where it seems like we're even in our congregation, we're put here. I don't know why we're all here, but we all are here. We're here for a reason, and we're meant to work together in this family. Some are going to have greater honor than we are, and our job is to say, yeah, amen. Let's lift them up. Let's work hard to support each other, even though it's like sometimes it feels like, well, I don't want them to give them honor. I don't know if they deserve that, right? It's just like we can end up in the same situation as Esau. But Esau also at the same time, like that's why the story is so fascinating. He comes back and he honors Jacob, right? He tries to bury the hatchet. He tries to even invite him home, and so he can try to rebuild this relationship with him. And so it's it's fascinating, but I think it's very real, at least these family dynamics. Sorry, I said we were going to get to Joseph today, and we need to do that.
Can I just say the
Yeah.
favoritism that those parents showed towards the respective children didn't help anything?
No, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about the Bible, right? Is especially in the narrative portions, it doesn't come out and tell you shouldn't have favorite children. Like it doesn't ever say that you shouldn't have a favorite child. In some sense, it's kind of beside the point, because you're always going to have a firstborn child, right? Regardless of what you do. and that firstborn child is going to inherit your stuff, and then it's going to be up to him to kind of distribute it to his brothers and sisters as he sees fit. And so, along with that, it'd be kind of silly to say you can't have favored children because, in some sense, your firstborn is the one who gets to inherit, and so saying you can't have firstborn or favored children is not what it says. But what it does show is like going too far in that direction leads to all these problems, and it's almost like exponential through this story, right? It's like you have this. It seems like there's kind of a problem with Ishmael and Isaac, but it doesn't really come up until later in the story when we get Ishmael's descendants being combative with Isaac's descendants. But then it is a very big problem with Esau and Jacob, and then with the 12 sons, it's like, oh my goodness, this is a complete mess. There's nothing's going right between any of these guys. They're constantly at each other's throats. They're fighting all the time. So this can't be good. So let's get into that story. So can somebody read Genesis 37, 1 through 11? Genesis 37, 1 through 11, please.
Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding a flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father.
So real quick. So who's Bilhah and Zilpah? Do you remember?
Handmaids.
Yeah, so they're the concubines of his father. Now, if you're the child of a concubine, what's your lot in life? You gonna inherit everything? No, you're gonna get something in the will. It's not gonna be great. You get to hang around, you get to be part of the family, but you're not in line for anything, right? So what's it mean that his favored son is giving a bad report about the sons of the concubines? What's that?
So that you're going to really be in a bad way.
Well, like, just think about your own family. Like, if you had a adopted child, like as a sibling, and somebody started, like one of your siblings started picking on the adopted child, like, how would everybody feel about the person that was picking on that child? Yeah, it's like, why are you messing with him? He's no threat to you. He's just leave him alone, right? And so Joseph, as the favorite child, he's giving this bad report about these brothers of his whom he doesn't have anything to gain over them. He already has the favor of his father, and so that's why it gives us that detail, right? It kind of goes over our head unless we think about that for a minute. And so it makes sense that all of his other brothers would be upset about this happening. All right, sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated
hopefully you can see here that there is guilt on both sides of this family, for the brothers and for Joseph, right? There is jealousy from the brothers who are not favored, but there's also some kind of adolescent brashness, foolishness, bragging from Joseph himself. And so, could Joseph have handled this better? Yeah, hopefully we see that telling all these brothers that are pretty annoyed with you already that they're actually going to serve you and bow down to you. Not a good way to behave. Is it true? Yeah, we see it at the end of the story. They all end up down in Egypt, bowing down to him, begging him for food. Right? Even his father and mother end up coming down to get stuff from him. So it's true that this is going to be the circumstance. But the way that you relate that to people matters. And the way that you convey truth to people, it matters. You can't just, well, this is the truth, and you gotta take it. That is a way to behave, but if people react poorly to it, then I think that's the lesson that one of the lessons that we have to see is that the way that you communicate things and your audience matters, and so just shoving something in somebody's face just because it's true doesn't mean that they're gonna suddenly become saints that, oh yeah, that's true, so I won't be upset about it. You have to be understanding of who you're talking to and how.
This tells us a little bit about Joseph, too. Joseph was pretty young and naive and guileless himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's consistent with his personality throughout his life that we see in the scriptures. So when he relates this story, he relates a story that he thinks, oh, everybody will celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, how could you not be happy about a blessing that comes to the nuclear family here? And then each part of the family, the brothers take it personally, the father takes it personally. They break it down, and interesting that the father kept it there because he understood that was going to be an ultimate blessing for the entire family. And it's part of the blessing that Abraham was given too.
Right. Yeah, and that family needs Joseph. Like, we find out later in the story that there's this 7-year famine that comes on the land.
Life's hard.
They didn't know it was coming, but Egypt knew it was coming because they had Joseph now, right? And so having Joseph around is a good thing because he can see the future because God gives him dreams. God gives him these visions so that he understands what's coming. So to have Joseph around is a good thing, but the brothers can't see past their own anger and jealousy about this. Can you think of another story that we've already read, which ends in exile, of brothers being upset because one gets a blessing that the other doesn't? Yeah, Jacob, Esau, Cain, and Abel. These are all the same patterns, right? These jealous brothers, angry because usually the younger has been given this thing that the older is not.
And Moses had an angry brother.
An angry, yep. Yeah, and so all these patterns are going to keep repeating. This one ends in Joseph's exile. So he's taken by his brothers, put into a pit. It's interesting. So there's two brothers that are kind of singled out as taking special part in Joseph's exile. And so first the brothers just say, let's just kill him. Right? But Judah's like, well, we're not going to get anything if we just kill him. So let's sell him into slavery. And then it seems after they go through with that plan, Reuben comes back because he thinks he's going to rescue Joseph and bring him back to his father. And so, who is Reuben? Why does he want to do that? And who is Judah? And like, where are they in the family line?
Reuben's first.
Yeah, so Reuben's the firstborn. What do we know about Reuben up to this point?
Seems like he should have been the most angry for Joseph, and he withheld this, but he didn't act that way.
sorry, I should have looked this up ahead of time. There's a verse, I think it's in 35. Reuben tries to do a little coup. He tries to take over the family. Sometimes we miss it because it doesn't say it that exactly, but it says that he sleeps with his father's concubine. I can't remember if it was
Chapter 30.
Bilhah or Zilhah. Is it in 30? Okay. Anyways, so he sleeps with one of his father's concubines. 32? 35, verse 22. Thank you. Came about while Israel was dwelling in that land that Reuben went in and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it. And so the reason that you would do that is because you're saying that I'm actually in charge now, taking over the family, but that doesn't happen. Jacob's still in charge, and so it's like a failed attempt to take over the family. But if you try to take over the family from your father and it doesn't work, you get cut out of the will. He's not gonna let you become his have the birthright, have the blessing, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then who's next in line after Reuben? Simeon and Levi. And what do we know about Simeon and Levi?
Well, didn't their sister get molested or something like that?
Yeah.
By a king, and they went to that town and told them to circumcise themselves?
Yeah.
And during that time, that they killed all the men in that town?
Yeah.
So they didn't get any of the blessings either.
Yeah, so they are cut out of the will too. And then who's next in line? Judah. So Judah's the next one, right? And if you're Jacob and your favorite son is your 11th born child, what are you looking for? Kind of looking for reasons to cut out 1 through 10, right? And so pretty easy with the concubines' children. They're children of concubines, or they're kind of out already. So really, I got Judah left, and then he's got a couple brothers, but we'll take care of them. And then Joseph could be the one who legitimately, and the family is going to be the firstborn. Okay.
No idea what dinner was like around the table.
Some very tense
He
dinners.
got his first wife, and she was not ever in his favor, not ever in his eye at all, and she's ugly too.
Hmm.
She's got ugly children on top of that.
And Judah was no paragon of virtue either.
Yeah.
Well, virtue is one thing, but physical beauty is one of those threads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joseph is said to be a handsome man.
Sarah and Rebecca and Joseph, all the physical beauty that you see through there is a favor
Mhm.
that God gives to a bloodline there.
Yeah, and so Judah's the last one, and so Judah says, well, let's not kill him, let's sell him into slavery. That's where he's at right now, as far as his character arc goes. And then in chapter 38, we find out this whole story about Judah and Tamar. And so if you haven't read through that, I'd encourage you to do that this week. It's a very strange story. Seems very odd. Basically, the summary is that Judah has this son, and he gets him a wife from the Canaanites around. He actually kind of moves. So after Joseph's gone, he kind of goes into this like self-exile. It's not clear whether he just leaves to go into exile himself, or he's kind of put into exile because he was supposed to be in charge, but he doesn't. He loses Joseph, but he kind of heads into the land of the Canaanites and starts intermarrying with them. And so he gets this daughter for a son, and the son dies, and then they basically have to go through several other another husband, and then the third husband, his daughter-in-law, who's now in his family, right? So that's kind of how it works in the ancient world, is that if you are a woman, you are married into a family, and so you leave your family, you join this new family. So now Tamar is part of Judah's family. So she's under his protection, and he's supposed to be taking care of her because his son died. His son is explicitly says he's wicked, and that's why he dies. And so there's another son, which is promised to her, and he's supposed to do that, and he does not do his duty, and so he's killed. And then there's this third son, and Judah actually says, well, don't let's just hold off. Let's just wait a little bit. He's in his mind, he's thinking that Tamar's the problem, that he keeps giving his sons to Tamar, and that she's like cursed or something, and so she keeps causing them to die, even though it's him and his sons who are wicked. It's their fault. But Tamar is supposed to be married, and she's supposed to be being taken care of by Judah and his sons, but she's not. So she goes through with this deception to basically get a son by Judah, and she reveals it to him because it's found out that she's pregnant, and she's supposed to be kept in waiting for his youngest son, who he's not giving in marriage to her, and it ends up she shows the community that it was actually Judah that made her pregnant, and so he gets another child that way. And Tamar is then kind of legitimized within Judah's family. But it's this whole idea that Judah has this change of heart, that he is now realizing that he is responsible for his family. And so that's going to affect the rest of the story when Judah goes down to Egypt with his brothers, and how he relates to his newest, youngest brother, Benjamin, in that part of the story. And so we'll wrap up thinking about Joseph now in exile, and this will get us through the end of Genesis, so we won't have time to read through this whole story. But from what you remember, Joseph going down to Egypt, first he goes to Potiphar's house, he's falsely accused, then he goes to the jailhouse. He's supposed to get some favors from these two guys that he rescues, or well, the one guy that he rescues, the other guy doesn't get rescued, but he doesn't get that. And then finally, one day he's brought up, and he becomes second command in Egypt again because of his dreams, because of his ability to help the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh. So with that, what are some themes, I guess, as far as just thinking about Joseph before he has this whole ordeal with his brothers? What are some themes that you can think of as far as exile, maybe that we've touched on before, or maybe that the story is bringing up anew, with Joseph going down to Egypt and having this prolonged period where seems like things are not going well, not going right for a long amount of time.
He's sold as a slave?
Yeah. So this idea of slavery is going to come up again and again, especially being sold into slavery down in Egypt. What else?
Redemption for the family of the line of Jacob.
Okay. So it's clear up to this point that God is working behind the scenes to do something, even though we haven't seen exactly what that is yet.
Betrayal's a huge part of the story. Like, you can say what you want about whether or not he should have tattletaled or should have, mitigated the dreams or whatever, but he gets absolutely savagely betrayed by his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, he's doing what he's supposed to do. Fast forward to Potiphar's wife. We don't get her name. That's Mr. and Mrs. Potiphar's wife. But she, good-looking dude. He buffs her, and she makes up a horrible story. It's quite a Jerry Springer episode. But he has to deal with that a lot. I think he has to deal with his exiles aren't self-made. His exiles are at other people's
so he goes into exile, and then it's like, seems like things are going well, and then they get worse. Seems like things might get better, and then the guy forgets that he saved his life, right? And so hopefully you can see that we all go through these periods of alienation and exile and this kind of stuff. And so it's important to understand that sometimes you're there because you did something stupid and you failed and you made bad choices. Sometimes you're there because your brothers betrayed you or somebody did something horrible. Sometimes things get worse because people continue to act in ways that they shouldn't. But God is continuing to stick with Joseph through all these things, continuing to bring him blessing. And Joseph doesn't give up, right? Joseph continues to work hard and continues to show up every day. And like, he gets thrown in jail, and he's like, well, I'm going to be the best inmate in here. And he is. Like, he's the best inmate, and he gets promoted to number 2 in the jailhouse, which is a strange concept. To be the inmate is the most trusted guy in the jailhouse. But you could be that, right? You could think of ways that where it's like, man, I'm in this terrible job, or I have this lousy friend, or whatever it is, but I'm going to be the best friend. I'm going to be the best worker here. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to bring God's blessings and show up every single day, so that they understand that I'm not here because I love being in this exact situation, but I'm here because I serve a God, and I'm going to bring his blessing and his ethic and all these things to that job and to the people that I interact with every day, because that's who I serve. So I'm going to be more like him. When Judah comes back, this is such a cool story. We're all done today. But just think about Judah's transformation, the reunification of the family. They end up back down in Egypt, which is what we saw last week with this promise to Abraham, that he was going to end up down in Egypt eventually. And so it's through this exile that then they're going to be fully saved and redeemed out of Egypt, and then brought into a covenant relationship with God as a nation. So we'll look at that next week, and